Hello, everybody. Welcome to our Yoga for the Creative Soul book club. On this day, as we're carrying ourselves through part 2 of the book, we're on chapter 7, exploring the 5 paths of yoga to connect or reconnect to our creative selves. And we're exploring how to use a system, how to apply Raja Yoga, the system of the 8 limbs of yoga from the Yoga Sutras, how to apply that Raja Yoga to expressing ourselves more freely and following through that process of self-expression. Today, we're talking about contentment. It's the first 2 limbs of yoga. Each have 5 parts. The first limb is restraining various forms of harm, and the second limb is observing various forms of purity or health. And so as we're working through that second limb, the observances, niyama, we're on to samtosha, contentment. Yoga is a 5,000-year-old tradition that began in India as an oral tradition, mostly for the monks, the sages, the wise ones. And in the last 100 years or so, the wisdom has become available to us. So much acknowledgement and thanks to the tradition of yoga. As you watch this video, there's a little bit of education in the beginning, the first 3 to 5 minutes, and then we go on to expressive activities. If it benefits you to scrub the video, fast forward through and hang out in the places that are most connecting to you at any given time, feel welcome to do that. Today we'll start our activities with some movement and perhaps breath or visualization before moving on to the expressive activity around contentment, samtosha. There I am. So you are welcome to play in that way by zipping through the video or hang out and enjoy the entire thing. All of us here today and perhaps watching the video as well are privileged to live, convene, create, work on the lands originally occupied by the land's original peoples. I am on the lands of the Anishnawbe, Haudenosaunee, and the Neutral as part of the Haldimand Tract along the Grand River, where only 5% of the lands promised by treaty to the people are actually occupied by those people, not settlers, and directly adjacent to the dish with one spoon agreement, which ended a long war in these parts. So food for thought for all of us in terms of how are we living and offering appreciation and caregiving to the lands, airs, and waterways upon which we are living rent-free. Now today, contentment is a way of accepting what life is. It plays into what we've been talking about in past weeks in terms of limiting harm, not wanting things we don't have, not grasping, right? Aparigraha is the Sanskrit word for that, restraint. And in harmony with that, we have this observance of contentment. And that speaks to the idea that contentment is cultivated. Contentment, until we've practiced it with commitment over a long period of time, contentment doesn't just come to us. It is the nature of our being to look for what's wrong, to seek more than we have. They ran a salary where they were quizzing people, study where they were quizzing people about their salaries, and they asked them, what salary would you be satisfied with? And no matter what a person was earning at the time of the study, no matter what they were earning at the time of the study, they said that they would be happy with a salary that was twice as much. That is a tendency. How much of that is programming in our society? Probably a lot of it. We live in a consumerist society. We're meant to value affluence, value stuff over connection and community. But here we are in yoga being steered back to that which truly does give satisfaction. Cultivating samtosha or contentment is a way of thinking and feeling. So contentment, as we're thinking about contentment, requires us to be accepting of reality as it is. And if you were playing along through chapter 6, the system of karma yoga, that path of action, that path of duty and outward practice, you remember that acceptance was taking up some space there as well. Acceptance is important overall as part of any spiritual journey. It makes us clearer in what is truly at play rather than resisting reality. And it also gives room for that which is beneficial or desired in a circumstance. So acceptance along with enjoyment. We'll sometimes hear people say, well, in yoga, if I'm cultivating a steady state of mind, if I'm cultivating balance or equanimity, I don't want to turn into a robot, right? I want to enjoy my life. And we forget that joy is a virtue. Joy is a state. Joy isn't just something fleeting that comes and goes. True joy, Ananda, bliss, is pervasive. It is a spiritual quality that we all have within us. And yoga talks about the obstacles to living as we truly are. But as we remove these obstacles, as we accept reality more and more, as we cultivate contentment, we have more and more access to that joy that is a true part of our being. And contentment also relates to peace of mind. There's a settling that can happen in contentment, a quieting, a stillness, a peacefulness. So we're not striving, we're not battling reality, we are allowing what is and are content with that. The folks will then say, well, if I'm content, does that not make me passive? Does that not make me, does that just kind of rolling over and saying, fine, I surrender? And we'll get to surrender in a few weeks as well, and what the spiritual meaning of that is. However, remember that dharma that we've talked about in the past, that sacred duty. We are meant to have a certain kind of life and to experience certain things. And contentment allows us to pursue our duty, to take the steps that we are meant to take to be truly ourselves. But if we are battling, if we are feeling malcontent, discontent, then we do not have the capacity to clearly, spiritually see the next action steps. So contentment is not a passivity. Acceptance is not rolling over and just letting things be the way they are, but it is taking action in the context of peace of mind, taking action without attachment to those end results. So we often see that contentment is accompanied by simplicity, is accompanied by or enhanced by thankfulness. So we're counting blessings instead of considering the lack. And contentment is contentment can be cultivated through sharing as well. They did a study on children as young as 2 years old, and they had a treat. What are they going to do with the treat, and how happy are they with that decision? I know it's kind of funny, how are they testing 2-year-olds' level of happiness, but they standardized it. They found a way. And children who kept the treat for themselves versus the children who shared the treat with a puppet friend were happier in the sharing. So even though consumerist society and values make us acquisitive, make us grasp, make us gather, yoga teaches us non-grasping. Yoga teaches us contentment. And in that openness and sharing, in contentment with being a part of connection and community, we have greater access to this abiding sense of well-being. So if we think about this in terms of our creative lives, then we can think of art making, expressive work, as sharing as well. A few weeks ago, we talked about what gets in the way of us sharing our expressions with others. However, art making can be a very sacred experience that is simply between you and Great Spirit, you and Creator, you and God. It can be something between you and nature, you and color, you and your own higher self or soul. Art making can be an offering to some form of greater good. And thinking of the Buddhist tradition of mandala making, the sand mandalas, and I know those of you who are local here to Brantford and perhaps in your areas, we've had the monks visit, and you could go watch them scrape the cones that the sand colors were coming out of, watch them create that mandala, watch them in creativity as meditation. And when it's done, what do? Take it the few steps down to the river. Yeah, sure, they blow it all away. In Brantford, I know they've taken it down to the river and just tipped it right into the Grand. Speaking of those original lands and waterways, right? There they are, as a blessing, as a symbolic action of non-attachment, and many other layers that I'm forgetting to say or beyond my understanding, because it's not fully my tradition. So I do encourage you to look into that mandala making. Art as an offering. And just leaving you with this quote. I could not find an actual source for this quote. It was coming out of a lot of Christian circles, so I wonder if it's in a commonly used translation of the Bible, although I'm not positive. Contentment is not the fulfillment of what we want. It is the realization of what we already have. And so what do we have? Let's come to standing, if that's comfortable for you. Some things that we always have with us that yoga reminds us to turn back to are our bodies, our somatic sense, and our breath. So as you're coming to standing, we're just going to play a little bit with body and breath. And I'd ask that you swing your arms and legs around. Swing your arms and legs around. Kick your feet front, side, and back. You might imagine the way you kick when you're getting droplets of water off your toes. The arms can swing in opposition. The arms can raise up and swing together. Maybe you even want to swim the arms a little bit. Swim the arms as you wish, but mobilizing those joints. And as you're letting your limbs flow through the air, notice the way your physical presence parts the molecules. Yes. And there's lots of ways to do this. Those of you who are staying in your seated space, even if you're reclined, you're finding the parts of the body that are mobile and mobilizing them. Yeah. How is the air parted with the movements? How does your breath play along as you are bringing some freedom to the activity, as you are playing with front, sides, and back, taking up space? And how beautiful is it? We often forget to be thankful or forget how much of a blessing it is to be mobile, to not be in pain until the opposite is there. And we don't need to be in complete health to access contentment. In fact, what we know about persistent pain is those who have lower pain perception, in other words, aren't hurting as much, are actively practicing contentment. There's a lot of research about state of mind and pain perception. So here, our bodies moving in the way they move, feeling the places that are comfortable if the mind has a tendency to be drawn to the discomfort, and loving the mobilization. And as we take the time following mobilization to become still, if you're standing, just planting your feet, or whatever position you're in, finding groundedness. Notice what your breath is doing. And being content with however the breath is moving, whether there's stutters or quivers, or whether it's smooth, whether there are parts of the lungs that aren't drawing air as freely, whatever you may be noticing. See if you can notice through the lens of contentment, acceptance, acknowledgement without wishing that things were different. And we'll go back to movement, a little more structured now, just going through the 5 directions of the spine, starting with elongating the spine in both directions. So you might narrow your stance a little bit. You can come to feet hip width apart, or even all the way together if you feel like it, and enhance that two-way stretch of the spine, dropping down through the pelvis and tailbone towards the earth, and floating up through the ribs, neck, top of the head, long spine. Before turning it into side bends, you can hang out in your side bend if you wish, or you can play dynamically. Breath phase into the bend, other breath phase out, and breath phase into the bend. Side bends and twists are similar, where there's not really a prescription about where in the action do you put the inhale or the exhale. And you know how we do things around here with variety. Even if there were a prescription, we would play with our options. And playing with options also helps increase our bandwidth for contentment, because the nervous system is more adaptable, more ready to face differences in everyday life, giving us more mental, physical, physiological, and psychological flexibility, not needing things to be different. So, done with the side bends now, maybe bring your hands apart, maybe shoulder height, maybe a wider V. If you don't have balance issues, look up to the space between the hands. So you're looking into space, not an object. And turn this into twists. Just exploring that revolution, that ringing action through the vertebrae, thinking of the entire spine as you're gazing into openness and moving. Mind your hips. If you are moving so far that it's throwing your hips out of alignment, just lift the heel that you're twisting away from, and let the leg pivot in its socket, protecting those lower joints. Playing with breath, observing contentment, not getting caught in that trap of judging yourself for not being content. It's part of the monkey mind. It's what it does. Next time you've centered, once you've balanced this out right side and left side, place your thumbs around the front of your ribs and splay your fingers near the back of your ribs. Different people have different sizes, different shoulder mobility, but in whatever way makes sense for your body, see if you can sense into the sides and back of the rib cage. And as you do that, turn it into a very gentle back bend. That means we're opening the front of the spine, not tipping the head back, but more reaching the chin forward, eyes forward and up. And feel the breath in the sides and back of the rib cage. Into this openness, inhaling samtosha, content. Exhaling, distributing that content through the body, in the blood, in the lymph, the bones. Nice. Letting the back bend go. Envisioning the backbone, and then as if you were peeling your spine off a wall, lowering chin, rounding shoulders. You can use your hands to brace off your legs if you're protecting your back. Rounding through the mid back, rounding through the low back, and bending the knees as much as you need to set the hip bones on top of the thighs. So you're not exaggerating an arch in the lumbar. You might need to bend your knees to make it happen, but get those hip bones down on top of the thighs, and then we'll just roll right back out of it, using your hands to climb if that's appropriate for you. Maybe you're straightening the back, strong support, sweeping up, finding your own way tall. And through this 5 directions of the spine, acknowledge again what were some of the thoughts and feelings that passed through your awareness? What was your relationship with contentment, of breath, of body as it was? And as we move into our expressive space, we're going to do this like a one-pane comic. But as always, if you want to take this to the dance floor, to your musical instrument, if you'd like to write it as a scene, a dialogue, go for it. The way we're going to play, if you're playing with the cartoon, is that you're going to draw a depiction of your higher self, or that version of yourself that you experience as most aligned, most authentic. Some people might depict their soul self or their artist self. And sometimes that artist self is the inner child. So we're not really going to dictate what that is, but in some way, you, a clearer version of you, and monkey. Depict a monkey. Depict this wise version of yourself. Give each one a chat bubble and let them have a conversation. We don't usually work things out in rough, but if you want a scratch pad to work out a longer dialogue and then turn it into speech bubbles, if there were a lot of words that you need to process, you can do a little free writing activity, a free dialoguing activity before going into the comic strip. And for those of you watching the video replay, you have all the time in the world for this. Just pause the video and take your time, acknowledging what was going through your mind as you were doing the movements, and noticing the breath, considering contentment, considering the role of acceptance. I do the creations along with you, probably more than anything to prove the point that you don't have to be so-called creative or so-called artistic. We're here for mental health through yoga and expressive arts. We're following the Raja Yoga path, the system provided by the Yoga Sutras for ultimate peace of mind, mental health, right? This contentment is an aspect of our mental, emotional, psychological, and physical well-being. So this stuff doesn't have to look like anything. In practicing samtosha as our expressive selves, we remember that we're also feeling contentment in the creative urge, finding a way to express ourselves. And this is me almost disclaimering what I'm coming up with here, but we're making the time to express because we know it sets us free. It clarifies things within us. It is related to improved self-care, and it does also increase contentment. So we're content to follow the creative impulse, and we're content with the outcomes. You've probably heard me quote Julia Cameron that it takes a lot of truly awful pieces of work before we come out with what we want. Truly awful. Her phrase makes me laugh. But those speech bubbles, what is the monkey saying? What is the true self saying? And I have to still write my speech bubbles, but if any of you have completed that expression of what did you notice coming up through that movement activity, that breath awareness activity, then please do feel welcome to share if you're comfortable sharing. All right, and I have mine distilled to an affirmation that I've been working with for many years, and self-criticism that I've been working with for many years as well. So there's my monkey. How innocent does that monkey look, eh? Eyelashes, little smile. I'm not a problem. And then that's some depiction of my true self. And the monkey, who's a parent, thinks it's not a problem, but the monkey's like, that's not right. You're not doing that right. You're not doing that good enough. You're not doing that well. You're not doing that appropriately. Thanks for your feedback, monkey. So again, samtosha, right? We don't resist what the monkey is doing. We're content. Okay, this is the monkey's habit. Oh, that's not good enough. Shocker. Thanks, monkey. Never heard that one before. And rather than being sarcastic back to monkey, I use the affirmation, all is well. All is well. All is well. And the contentment lands, the breath deepens, there's more space for peace, the stillness are there set into play. Is there anybody else who wants to share? Yeah, hi, Karen.
Hey, Erin. So here's my monkey mind. It's like a little gremlin saying, go, 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 get up, do something. You have to keep going. You have to keep doing something, being productive. And then here is my higher self, and it's I'm in a cave, which I will fill in later, but it's a bear resting in a cave, just kind of looking at the gremlin upside down saying, what, what did you say? Don't bother me, I'm resting.
Good job, bear. Exactly. Thanks, Karen. That's great.
I could share my drawing. It's self-evident. There's the monkey saying, "What a mess." I've got my shirt on saying it's okay, and my beret with the creative birds on it.
Oh, nice. Oh, and affirmations again. Thank you, Florence.
The monkey sitting on my hand in an outreached arm. That's one of my favorite positions too, and to turn it sideways, that different stretch. And so the monkey's saying, "Can you fly?" And my response is, "One day I will."
George, can I ask you, and it's okay, you can just pass on answering, but I'm curious because there's so much locomotion even in the exchange between the monkey and you. When you say, "Can you fly?" "One day I will," does something happen physiologically or physically?
I just feel an empowerment coming up.
Yeah.
And also with the poses, it's just I don't know, an adjustment that just feels that power. So it must have still been there, and the monkey gets the best out of you, right?
Yeah, thanks, monkey, for
And then
making
you
it.
hurt my dummy.
That's great. Thank you, George. And a nice reminder for us, right? We know that when the underarms are exposed, it actually does limit depressive symptoms in us and gives us greater access to courage and upliftedness. They've studied that. So thanks for that reminder as well, George.
Can you say that again? Do you mind?
Exposing
Erin,
the underarms.
go ahead.
Exposing the underarms helps limit depressive symptoms. It brings on a greater sense of well-being and confidence. And you can check out Amy Cuddy's TED Talk on power poses. That was some early literature on this, and now they've just taken it and run with it.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Kate. Yeah, 2 minutes a day, something about 2 minutes a day of either arms in a T or arms overhead to help with low mood and all, the I can'ts and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. Dean, I saw your camera come on. Do you feel like, I think, so Amy Cuddy is Cuddy, and I think it's called Power Positions, but I could be wrong. Believe me, it has millions of hits. If you just search Amy Cuddy TED Talk, you're gonna get it. Yeah, thanks for asking. Who's next?
Sure,
Yeah.
I'll show my artwork.
Great.
I hadn't been doing any drawing in quite a while, so I kind of got carried away with that. So I didn't get the instructions down complete. But I have me in the middle, my monkey on the side, and a pot of gold on this side. And I just said, "Hey, monkey, get off my cloud. I prefer peace, abundance associated with the pot of gold."
Beautiful. Yeah, and you were looking at your stuff, so you couldn't see it, but lots of resonance in the group as well. Thanks for sharing that inspiration with us.
So I didn't draw at all. And I have my monkey on the left and my authentic self on the right, just in words. And I wrote, "I can't move at all." That's the monkey. "And you have lost all your creativity." I didn't even know how to begin to draw a monkey. And that that bothered me. And then the authentic self is, "You can move many things, and I haven't lost my creativity. It just needs uncovered.
Hmm.
But I'm also wondering about the, like my monkey spoke first, and the left to right of the monkey. When I'm looking at everybody else's drawings, the monkey is on the right, the authentic self is on the left. Except Erin, I don't think yours was.
No, my monkey's on the left.
Okay,
So that's a rabbit hole.
okay.
A monkey tree. You know, there's a little bit about the left side of the page being the past and the right side of the page being the future. There's a little bit about left being yin, feminine, so maybe female influences in life, but also nighttime, quietude, introspection, and the right side being yang, outward reaching, masculine associations, brightness, action oriented, if I didn't say that already. So those are some curiosities to apply.
As a teacher,
However,
you said first draw yourself and then the monkey. So I put self on the left because I write left to right. So that's cultural and nothing else. It's taught, learned behavior.
100%. In the Middle East, we would have, yeah, just the order of instructions. Thank you for weighing in on that. I wouldn't have even considered.
So mine was very body focused right now because I'm feeling a lot of intensity that way. So the shining gem is the higher self, and the monkey mind is a scribble. And the higher self spoke first and said, oh yeah, I love and respect my body, which is what I was feeling during the stretching. And the monkey mind goes, yeah, whatever, this pain is real. When do you think you're going to value it enough to lovingly create a consistent practice of stretching and strength? You suck because you're still not listening. And then the higher self just says patience and with loving acceptance, breathing kindness into the tissues. It's okay.
Yeah. And the simplicity of that again, right? The simplicity of contentment. Monkey could tirade for hours. It's okay.
Hi, mine's really simple. So when you said simple, that was good. This is me. I'm a goddess in my true self. That's what I want to be. Like I want to be, and I was on the left, and it says another day in paradise, which is kind of our theme when we wake up. Well, we have a gift of another day in paradise because we do. I do anyway. And the monkey is saying, oh, but you need to get cupboards. You need to get shelves. You need to get this. You need to get that. And I often have to stop and say to myself, are you kidding? Do you know how many people live with 9 people in a small house with no beds, with, no cupboards, forget it. And so that's sort of what came up for me. But the other thing that was really interesting, when we were doing our stretching, I kept thinking of my mother, who's been passed for a long time. She was never happy with what she had. Now, she had a difficult life, but in the end, she ended up getting a nice little geared income housing with a lawn that she could go out and plant flowers. She was never happy with what she had. And that has resonated with me for a long time because it makes me not want to do that. I do want to, yeah.
Thank you, Donna. Important. Yeah. And thanks to all of you for your thoughts, for your sharing. The beauty of this is how much truth comes out in the expression. It's not about the end result. We're content with that. But how much truth comes out that we can then continue to build upon as inspiration in our everyday lives. So I wish you contentment, simplicity, peace affirmation. Deep, free breaths as you go through the next week. Thanks to everybody who was here and for your sharing and ideas. And thanks to everyone watching the recording for your participation in your own mental health and growth. Please do post to the Facebook group so we can continue the inspiration and support. And thank you, everybody.